Imagine opening a book and realizing that those pages weren't meant to be in your hands. Not because they're rare or ancient, but because they hold secrets so dangerous that, in some cases, entire governments tried to hide them forever. Strange to think about, isn't it? After all, a book is just paper and ink. But at certain moments in history, a single paragraph could change destinies, challenge religions, or even threaten the entire order of a society. Today we're diving into a dark and fascinating territory, forbidden books. Works so controversial, mysterious, or disturbing that they were censored, burned, hunted down, and yet somehow survived the test of time. And don't think we're just talking about novels that defied the morals of their era. Some of these books contain formulas deemed cursed, descriptions of rituals that seem straight out of horror movies, or ideas so revolutionary they were treated as weapons. They're like vaults of knowledge, locked away not for lack of value, but because what's inside might be in some way too dangerous. Now, picture finding one of these dusty tomes in a forgotten library. Would you open it? Or would you let the secret sleep for another century? In the next few minutes, we'll explore these forbidden relics, uncover why they were seen as threats, and discover what they reveal about the fears and limits of their times. And here's a heads up. Some of these stories sound like fiction, but they're all too real. But first, tell me, if you found a forbidden book, would you have the courage to read it? Our first dive is into a book so enigmatic that even today, no one has fully deciphered it, the Voynich manuscript. Imagine holding a book of over 600 pages, filled with drawings of plants that don't exist anywhere on Earth, indecipherable symbols, and diagrams that look like star maps, but written in a language that absolutely no one can understand. It was discovered in the early 20th century by an antiquarian named Wilfrid Voynich, but it's believed to have been written in the 15th century. Since then, linguists, cryptographers, mathematicians, and even artificial intelligence experts have tried and failed to crack its code. It's as if someone invented an entire language just to hide secrets within its pages. Here's the most intriguing part. No one knows the manuscript's true purpose. Was it a book of medieval magic? An alchemy manual? A clever hoax by some eccentric genius? Or, as some believe, a record of knowledge humanity isn't yet ready to comprehend? The Voynich manuscript wasn't officially banned by any government, but it was feared and marginalized for centuries precisely because it's unreadable. After all, what's more dangerous than a book no one can decipher, yet seems to hold forbidden answers? And if I told you this isn't the only mysterious book that defies our understanding? The next book was written to never be read. Literally. If the Voynich manuscript intrigues because it's indecipherable, the next book was deemed so dangerous that for centuries, anyone who dared read it could end up at the stake. The Necronomicon. Hold on, I know what you're thinking. That name sounds familiar from H.P. Lovecraft's horror stories. But here's the curious detail. Many believe this book actually existed at some point in history, or at least was inspired by real grimoires. The Necronomicon is said to be a compendium of magical formulas, invocations of entities, and rituals so dark that, according to legend, anyone who attempted them could go mad or unleash forces beyond human comprehension. It's like a forbidden manual for opening doors that should never be opened. The medieval church saw such works as a direct threat, not just to faith, but to the social order itself. Imagine peasants believing they could control spirits or predict the future. It would be like handing them a nuclear weapon. That's why books of magic, alchemy, and the occult were hunted down, burned in public squares, and hidden in secret libraries. The most curious thing is that, even without concrete proof of its physical existence, the Necronomicon became such a powerful legend that people still search for it today. Some swear that fragmented versions have surfaced in private collections, always shrouded in mystery and fear. But what if I told you about a real book written by a pope that was banned because it revealed more than it should? Few people know this, but one of the most controversial books in history wasn't written by an alchemist or occultist, but by a pope. We're talking about the Liber Gomorianus, written in the 11th century by Pope St. Peter Damian. The title alone hints at its explosive content. The book denounced, in detail, sexual practices within the clergy of the time. Imagine the impact of that. a document exposing intimate secrets of the medieval church, pointing directly at behaviors deemed sinful among monks and priests. It was like someone had opened the black box of the world's most powerful institution at the time. The problem was that the book didn't stop at accusations. It described with astonishing frankness the condemned practices. For church leaders, this was a danger. After all, putting into words what was meant to stay hidden could not only expose scandals, but also spark curiosity in those who would never have imagined such things. The result? The Liber Gomorianus was deemed too dangerous to circulate freely. For centuries, copies were hidden, destroyed, or kept under strict control, as if it were a secret never meant to be read. And here's the question that lingers. What's more dangerous, the sin itself or the written record of it? Perhaps that's why this book is still remembered as an example of how words can shake empires. But hold on, because there's another forbidden book that isn't about scandals, but about scientific knowledge so advanced it seemed like witchcraft. In the 16th century, a book sent shockwaves through the academic and religious worlds, De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium by Nicholas Copernicus. The title sounds complex, but the idea inside was simple and explosive. Copernicus claimed that the Earth was not the center of the universe, but instead orbited the Sun. Today, that seems obvious, but imagine the audacity of this claim in the early modern age, when the Catholic Church firmly upheld the geocentric view, that everything revolved around the Earth. To them, denying this was like denying the divine order itself. When the book circulated, it caused panic among religious authorities. The heliocentric idea wasn't just a scientific theory, it threatened centuries of dogma. It's as if someone today claimed that our entire understanding of quantum physics was wrong and provided concrete proof. The impact would be devastating. That's why Copernicus's work was considered dangerous. For years it was on the Church's list of banned books. Reading those pages could be seen as heresy, and heresy, in that era, came at a steep price. The irony is that Copernicus never lived to see the full impact of his work. The book was published in the year of his death, 1543. Little did he know that his ideas would plant the seed for the so-called scientific revolution, forever changing how we view the cosmos. But forbidden books aren't just about science and religion. Some were censored for directly meddling with politics, and those are even more explosive. If there's anything as frightening as revolutionary scientific ideas, it's books that tamper with politics. A striking example is The Prince, written by Niccolò Machiavelli in the 16th century. Today, the term Machiavellian is synonymous with manipulation and cunning. But at the time, this book was considered almost a weapon. The Prince described, without mincing words, how a ruler should act to maintain power. Machiavelli wasn't concerned with morality or sounding virtuous. He basically said that if lying, deceiving, or even betraying was necessary to stay on the throne, so be it. In other words, politics wasn't about being good, but about being effective. Now imagine the impact of this in the 16th century. Kings, popes, and nobles didn't want the public to know about the raw underbelly of power. The book was labeled dangerous, heretical, and even diabolical. It's no wonder Machiavelli's name was seen as almost cursed for centuries. The most curious thing is that the more they tried to silence the book, the more it spread. Even today, The Prince is studied in universities and read by leaders worldwide. It's like a secret manual of political strategies that survived censorship. But this wasn't the only case where a book changed the course of empires. Some were even more radical, advocating for the overthrow of kings. And, of course, those were banned immediately. Want to see an example that nearly sparked entire revolutions? If The Prince showed how to maintain power, some forbidden books taught the exact opposite, how to topple those at the top. One of the most famous is The Social Contract, written by Jean-Jacques Rousseau in the 18th century. In this book, Rousseau introduced an explosive idea for the time. Power didn't come from God or the nobility, but from the people. He argued that all citizens should have a voice, and that governments only existed because the people allowed them to. That sounds normal today, but back then it was practically a call to revolution, and it delivered. The book's ideas were so influential that they inspired political movements across Europe and played a key role in the French Revolution. For kings and emperors, the mere act of someone reading Rousseau was seen as dangerous because it planted the seed of disobedience. As a result, in many places, the social contract was banned, censored, and even burned in public squares. But as with every book they tried to hide, the prohibition only increased its fame. Every hidden copy became almost a revolutionary treasure, passed from hand to hand like dynamite in the form of words. It's astonishing to think that a few printed pages managed to topple centuries of absolute monarchies. A powerful reminder that ideas, when written down, can be stronger than any sword. But hold on, because not all forbidden books are about power or science. Some were banned simply because they seemed cursed. Among the strangest forbidden books in history, some weren't banned for politics or science, but out of pure fear. One example is the Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible. The name alone gives you chills, doesn't it? This massive manuscript, written in the 13th century, is considered the largest medieval book in the world, weighing over 70 kilos. So far, so good. What really grabs attention is the legend surrounding it. The story goes that a monk sentenced to death promised to write the greatest book ever seen, compiling all human knowledge in a single night. When he realized he couldn't keep his promise, he allegedly made a pact with the devil himself to finish the work. And indeed, in the middle of the Codex Gigas, there's a massive illustration of Satan taking up an entire page, something completely unusual for the time. It's not hard to see why the book gained a reputation as cursed. For centuries, it was believed that whoever possessed it was doomed to misfortune or ruin. The most curious thing is that despite the legend, the book's content includes biblical texts, medical treatises, and even historical records. In other words, there's nothing explicitly justifying the Devil's Bible title, except for that eerie figure that seems to watch the reader with every turn of the page. But what if I told you there are also forbidden books that don't seem cursed, but were censored simply for challenging everyday customs? Not every forbidden book was about demons, revolutions, or science. Some were banned for something seemingly simpler, questioning norms. A famous example is Ulysses by James Joyce. Published in 1922, the novel was deemed obscene in several countries, including the United States and England. But why? The work described in extremely detailed and innovative ways the daily lives of ordinary people in Dublin. So far, nothing unusual. The problem was that Joyce didn't hold back when addressing his characters' intimate thoughts, sexual desires, and even bodily functions. For the conservative society of the time, this was unacceptable. The result, the book was censored, confiscated, and only circulated clandestinely. Ironically, being banned made it gain a reputation as a cursed work, sparking even more interest. It was as if each copy was a secret passport to a literary world too daring for the era's standards. Another iconic case was Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. Published in 1856, the novel told the story of Emma Bovary, a woman trapped in a dull marriage who sought passion in other arms. For the morals of 19th century France, this was scandalous. The author was even prosecuted for offending public morals, and the book nearly disappeared. In the end, both novels survived and are now considered classics. Censorship, ironically, only turned them into literary legends. And to wrap up our journey, let's explore why forbidden books continue to fascinate us today. After this journey through books that were burned, hidden, or even cursed, one question lingers. Why do these works still captivate us so much? Maybe because deep down, every human is drawn to the forbidden. The simple act of someone saying, "Don't read this," sparks the urge to open the first page. And here's the irony. The more they tried to silence these books, the more power they gained. The Voynich manuscript became an eternal enigma. The Necronomicon turned into a legend. The social contract helped ignite revolutions. Even novels accused of obscenity ended up on the list of literature's greatest classics. It's as if each forbidden book is a window into the fears